Hi, my name is Reema and I'm from Indian School of Business. Actually, there are two more of my colleagues here. There's Lalita and Raghu, who work also with Indian School of Business. So if you have any questions with respect to our institution, please feel free to contact us. We have a very interesting, just to give you a little bit, I think some of you might have heard, Indian School of Business is one of the top ranking business schools. It's internationally recognized and it's very much focused in research around some of the business domains like finance, marketing, economics and information systems. I had one of the centers, such centers of research called SRITNI. It's called Srini Raju Center for IT and Network Economy. And basically we are looking at the intersection of IT and business, how technology is changing the way we do business, how technology is adding value to society. And I think in that respect, I'm very, very happy to be here and to meet all of you. I think this is a very interesting forum, and one of the things that actually I've asked Anand from Gramina to do is bring this forum to Hyderabad. I think this is an initiative that we should take actually to all cities because there's so much of connection between governance and open data and research that we can foster through open data. At SRITNI, we have an initiative called Asia Analytics Lab that's headed by Professor Ganesh, and she's also a big proponent of open data, hence the name of our project was called Data Liberalization. We really believe in free data and having access to data. Again, a little bit on Asia Analytics Lab is the focal point of data analytics initiatives, education, research, and business applications in the Asian context. So if anyone, we have a website link. If you go to isb.edu/SRITNI, you can see all the initiatives under that. We are working on with the UID authority on the identity initiative, as well as this is one of our major initiatives in the center. So the data liberation via visualization is a joint initiative with SRITNI and Gramina. We have a data set that we got from one of our faculty who is studying migration patterns, and the idea was to look at it visually. So one of the things we discussed, right, is this causality and is it causation versus is it just correlation. And the goal here is that faculty, especially when we are in academic community, we get so involved in doing deep analysis of the data that sometimes you forget to go back and look at overall what the data is telling us. And hence this initiative is with the academic community to promote visualization and seeing the data first rather than going deeper into it. So that's to promote more understanding of the data set. So with that, I'll pass on to Ganesh from Gramina and you take it on.
Thanks, Reema. Hi, my name is Ganesh. I'm from Gramina. So before we look at the details of the visualization and the insights, I'll quickly give you an overview about the data set. So this is from the National Sample Survey of 2007 to 8, wherein they have done a representative sampling across the states and union territories in India. And this was done over about 5 lakh participants. And from that, education, employment, and migration patterns were collected. And we've taken up this data set, and then we've taken up outside view of this, which is like something like a non-demographic analysis expert kind of view, outside analytical view of this, to see what are the possible ways to look at it, and what are the ways to visualize this, and see the insights. So which is what we've tried to do here. And we've broadly divided into 3 sections. First, we'll talk about the state-wise migration patterns, and then we will talk about the reasons for migration, and then how it varies across states. And then finally, we'll talk about the evolution of migration over the years. So this is the agenda. So firstly, the key statistics. About 5.7 lakh people were surveyed all over India, and out of which about 30% were found to be migrants. And for those migrants, additional information was collected in terms of the reason for migration, from which state, district they migrated, and so on. So if you look at that, there was again 2 broad divisions: intra-state people who are moving within the state, and those who move across states. So majority, 83% of the migration happened within the state, and 15% was across. So for this pattern, we have looked at a geographic distribution, how it looks in terms of the churn within the states on a map, and then we try to look at the inbound versus outbound, the net gain kind of analysis, and then we finally looked at the rural versus urban split in terms of where are people moving. Are they moving to rural areas, urban areas, and so on.
How have you defined migrants?
a person who has moved out of his usual place of residence, and it could be short-term migrants or long-term migrants. For this purpose of study, we've taken all migrants, like short-term and long-term, but anyone who has moved away from his usual place of residence. It could be from one district to another, or could be across states.
Is there a temporal limit, like somebody moves out for 2 months or a month? Have you got a lower benchmark to figure out who the migrant is?
Yeah, that information is also collected, but for this purpose of analysis, we have looked at all migrants together. But that is also collected in terms of, they classify people as, say, about 30 days short-term migrants, and then a year or so would be long-term migrants. There are definitions for that, and they've collected that.
Was there any socio-economic thing? Like Bangalore is a city of migrants, right? All the IT sector is 90% migrants coming out. So, but you considering more lower socio-economic, who were forced to migrate or who voluntarily migrated for jobs?
It was across. So all economic sections and all classes from different classes of the society, and with different education backgrounds, illiterate people, and so on. So this was a stratified sampling. So they've identified a representative sample across states, across sections. So it was again based on that. So wherever we see a majority pattern, you will be able to see that those districts or states are getting majority of migration. So it was again done across population. So this is the first plot that we have. I'll probably use this map. You can see the shades clearer. So here, the first plot is in absolute numbers. If a certain number of people are moving within the state, we've just plotted that against each of the states. So green indicates more migration within the state, and red indicates lesser migration. So you can see from 0 to about 17,000. And 17,000 is for UP. So these are the top 5 states with most intrastate migration happening. And not surprisingly, all these 5 are the most popular states except for Bihar. So Bihar comes 7th or 8th. And all other, the most popular states have come up in the top 5. And we try to look at it differently. So what if we resized it based on the state's population, or in this case, the survey size? So which is what this map shows. The story completely changes. So you can see that the weightage for each of the states is taken uniformly. So the reds move more towards the northeast, and then Uttar Pradesh and Maharashtra do not figure that prominently. So these are the top 5 states now. So the maximum intrastate migration as a percentage of the surveyed population is in Andhra Pradesh, 31%. And then the other 4 are Himachal Pradesh, Gujarat, Kerala, and surprisingly Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So if you look at sizing with respect to the state's population, this is what it looks like. And so similarly, we have done a similar kind of plot for interstate migration. So for this map, we had excluded all across state migration. So the next one is a net gain loss view. So we have taken the total number of people moving into a state minus the people moving out of the state. So that is a net gain loss kind of a view. So here again, the major states which are showing up are Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. So Uttar Pradesh has lost most number of people, which is about 3,000. The numbers are again related to the sample size. And considering the sample size, probably 3,000 is representative of that. And then Bihar is the second state which has lost more people, and Maharashtra and Delhi. So these two have gained the most. So this is again in absolute numbers. Now if we do a similar kind of view, now the story again changes. Maharashtra is not the net recipient anymore. If you do a percentage scaling, it's not Maharashtra. Maharashtra probably comes in the 8th or 9th position. So this is the numbers against the same state we've shown, about 5%. Delhi is still amongst the top, which is 21%. And who are the real the gainers? So presently it is all the union territories. So if you look at the net migration into a state or union territory, about 34% is in Dadar Nagar Haveli. Chandigarh has about 41% net gain, and all the union territories you've seen uniformly have gained more, which again is a pattern which is coming out. The reasons, what are the reasons for people moving to union territories could be a subject for separate study. So this is one view. We also try to look at where are people going from, for instance, Uttar Pradesh to which state. So what is the order in that respect? So we did a heat map. So this is what the heat map looks like. This is not a traditional fixed square kind of heat map. We've taken the height of each box to be the number of people moving away from that state. So the y-axis is the people moving away from state, and then the x-axis is the people, the state where people move to. So the height of each of the boxes is the numbers from state, and the width, for instance, width up here is the number of people moving to Maharashtra. Yeah.
Sorry. I was curious to see Bangladesh then. Interesting.
Yeah. So here we have this data set also accounts for international migration. So people who have moved into India from other countries. And when we did this analysis, Bangladesh actually came up on the top. There are entries from USA, UK, and almost all other countries. And those were again very small in number. But Bangladesh is considered like under that. So this is how the heat map is organized. So that way you see this kind of fading out at the bottom and at the right. So it's against size. And the color indicates the number of people. So more the number of people migrating, the darker the band. So as we saw, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar lose more people. Maharashtra and Delhi gain. And people from Uttar Pradesh primarily go to primarily go to Delhi. And the other two major recipients of people from Uttar Pradesh are Maharashtra and Uttarakhand. Bihar similarly, Delhi, West Bengal and Uttar Pradesh are the top three. And for Rajasthan, it is Maharashtra, Haryana and Gujarat. So this again shows a pattern. And we also found another interesting insight. You see the dark bands which are like all over. So any guesses what is the pattern coming out of that?
So you did dark band.
So you see dark bands here, which shows considerable migration.
Yeah.
Can you identify any kind of pattern or some similarity of all these things? This again is spread all over.
It seems adjacent states.
Correct, yeah. That is insight. So all this migration you're seeing here is all to adjacent states. And the proximity is driving migration both intrastate and interstate. So Madhya Pradesh people migrate to Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh and so on. Tamil Nadu people migrate to Kerala, Pondicherry, Andaman Nicobar Islands, again in proximity. So which is the same across states. So this is again an interesting pattern which came up. So with this I move to the other part which talks about the migration across rural and urban areas. So any guesses whether the migration is more towards rural or towards urban areas? Urban. So that is a common perception. But actually people move towards the rural areas. So rural to rural migration accounts for more than 50% of migration within India. And this actually includes both intrastate and interstate. So of the 1.7 lakh people who are migrants, over 50% at the India level are moving rural to rural. And then when we see the reasons, again this becomes a little more evident. And the next major pattern is rural to urban, and obviously like rural to urban and urban to urban is the second closest reason. Do you see it? Yeah.
I'm not sure I agree with that. Please define in your methodology what is defined as rural and what remains rural despite a population influx. That when is it classified to be peri-urban?
Yeah, these are again standard classifications which are adopted with the national, by the government of India and with the National Sample Survey. Across the surveys, they have certain definitions. So each state, they have defined certain areas as urban and rural. So we've taken the same definitions and then looked at it. So then, yeah, to your point, I'm not sure whether they're doing an adjustment as say economic development happens or over a period of time they do it. But we've taken the definition. So that is something which could be checked. Is there any other pattern that you see here again in this chart? Okay, so you see the bars here, they are again kind of bucket different. So rural to rural is low here, whereas rural to urban and urban to urban is high. So what are these states again? Union territories and the northeastern states. So which again is standing out in contrast, similar to the earlier charts we saw. So this again, this kind of summarizes the geographic analysis we've done. With this, we'll move on to the reasons for migration and then for the hand over here.
Hi, I'm Lalita, and now that we looked at all the patterns of migration across India, we're going to go on to the reasons for migration. What drives people to migrate? So, any guesses as to why people migrate in India? What's the major
Jobs.
living opportunities? So the interesting part, looking at the chart, can you guess as to what's the major driver for migration? Explaining the chart, on the y-axis you have the reasons for migration, the x-axis is the age, red represents the women population, and blue represents men.
Marriage.
Men is the employment of women.
Yeah, so the major reason why women migrate is generally because of marriage, and then they migrate in the age, within the age group, say 15 to 30 years of age. And then the migration of parent or earning member is generally kids and dependents who migrate due to that reason. And employment, as you can see, it's very evident that middle-aged men migrate due to employment. So now that we looked at the major reasons for migration, we want to look at it as to whether these reasons evolve, change over a period of time. So how are the reasons evolving over the years? So it's the same chart again. The only thing that differs here is on the x-axis you have the time period for migration. So basically over a period of time, marriage has been one of the major drivers for migration since pre-independence in 1940, but it's only with evolving economic conditions that people started migrating because of employment. As you can see, people, the bar gets thicker from 1970, and it's only of late in 2000, late 1990s and 2000 that people migrate due to healthcare or education or proximity to place of work and other and reasons like that. And
what's the grid color on the y-axis? Something is gray and green and.
Oh, so we actually bucketed the reasons based off like marriage, migration of parent and earning member is basically personal reasons, and employment, transfer of service contract is like employment related, studies is yellow, and then natural and forced disasters come under red. So we kind of bucketed.
There's no class of reasons that decreased, or is that a limitation of the chart of how you're projecting it?
Sorry?
Was there any reason that decreased, that for example people decided were migrating less due to economic reasons or less due to, everything is always increased to this chart?
Yeah, I think it is because I think it's a bias in the data. It's just people just increased. The number of people who are surveyed, maybe who migrated in 1940 might be really less compared to people who are surveyed at who migrated in 2000 or 1990.
It may be because it's migrate now.
Sorry?
I think maybe it's because it's easier to migrate.
Yeah, I agree. So transportation might be one of the reasons that people are migrating.
Opportunities also are like various other reasons that people move on, right?
So the next thing that we looked at was, do people in certain regions, are these drivers, are certain drivers prominent in certain regions? So this is a heat map, which is, again, on the y-axis is actually all the states, and on the x-axis, this is not very clear, on the x-axis is the reasons. So if you look at Tripura, the major reason actually is because of natural or forced disasters, like political reasons or natural disasters that people move away from Tripura. And for UP, interestingly, it's marriage. I think women in UP just get married in other states across India. Karnataka, I think it's a really nice state. So people, unless they find better employment or they find another job, they don't generally move out of Karnataka. So it's kudos for Karnataka. After this, we looked at, so why do people migrate? What do they do post-migration? So what's their employment status post-migration? So if you look at it, the reason for migration is again on the y-axis, and the post-migration employment status is on the x-axis. So women who get married and migrate are generally involved in domestic duties. Some of them work as wage employees, and a lot of them actually are self-employed. So and men who migrate because of employment reasons are generally employed as wage employees or they're self-employed. And maybe because children generally migrate due to, because their parents migrate, they generally attend an educational institution post-migration. So the summary of the entire analysis of the migration pattern, the way we looked at it was the intrastate migration is higher than the interstate migration. This is only because I prefer to move from, say, Delhi to UP to Delhi, but I wouldn't come all the way to Trivandrum, so, or within a state. So intrastate migration is higher than interstate. UP and Bihar lose the maximum number of people, which makes sense. People go to Maharashtra for better employment. and Maharashtra and Union Territories gain in the same process. Rural to rural migration is dominant, and very rarely do urban population move to rural population. And actually, somebody just pointed out, maybe if the data set was collected in 2011, we might find some urban population moving to rural areas. Marriage and employment, marriage for women and employment for men drives the migration patterns in India. And women are generally involved in domestic duties post-migration, where men are wage workers. So the entire data liberation project is about visual analytics. So why visual analytics? Simply because it's comprehensive and compelling. Like, you can take a large data set, put it in various charts, any chart that you're comfortable with. Most of the charts that we've showed, you can just view them as bar plots or any other plot that you want, tree maps, and then just get an idea of a feel of the data. And it's eye-catchy and pleasing. You just look at one chart and you know what the entire, maybe one's entire story of the data set. It also enhances seeing some unseen patterns. Like, if the entire data set is moving towards a certain trend and there's a trend that's against the other trends, so you know there's something wrong with the data, which actually is a big problem in the world of data, that data discrepancies and data. So you have that chance. So what does visual analytics encompass? It is analytical reasoning techniques, data processing, visual representation, design, and finally, nobody's not going to give you money if it doesn't drive business value. So a corporate will give you money only if they see some business value in it. So that's visual analytics, and it's a lot of fun. So that's why most of us do it here. Questions?
Two questions. One is, what tools did you use for the graphing?
So for prototyping, we use Excel and R, and Grammar uses Python.
Yeah, so the exploratory part was done in Excel and R, and most of the visualization has been created using the grammar visualization.
Oh, okay, so that's private.
Yeah, correct, yeah. Over R was also used.
So the second question in your statistic, I'm not a statistician, so someone can tell me, before I look at those things in detail, 500,000 sample size out of a population of 1.2 billion. Is that statistically significant at all?
Yeah, that is again the problem of availability of data.
Yeah. No, I'm not.
So,
I mean, it's
yeah,
one thing.
Very, very valid point.
What would be statistically significant?
Generally, maybe 1% could be a good sample size. It's just that people don't answer surveys and.
Right. So 1% would be 12 million in India.
Yeah.
So any data we see on people in India that is under 12 million, we should be suspect.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all. I'm just trying to learn.
Sure.
I'm not entirely sure if I mean I don't know if that's entirely correct. Like 1% is usually a good benchmark, but I would think a survey which has 500,000 data points will have enough will have enough substance to give you statistically significant reads. I mean I'm not sure if the sample size needs to be strictly be over 1% or around 1%. I think 500,000 would be big enough for you to make a lot of reads from this, which would be statistically significant.
500,000 out of 1.2 billion. I don't know.
Also, I think
I think it's the technique, the sampling technique that you use. So when you use this survey was done using stratified sampling. So if a particular state has, say, based off their economic status and based off their work status, so they picked two people from that particular status. So it was stratified. So it was representative of a population. So there were like even 2 million people in the population, and 2-3 people answered that survey. It's representative.
Yeah. And I also think it depends on the kind of questions you're trying to answer. If you're trying to answer questions where you're just using the 500,000 sample at an aggregate level, then you'll probably get statistically sound reads from it. It's only when you start digging down and you say, from this state, people with this vintage, those kind of things, then you'll probably start seeing a lower sample size, and that's where, the reads will be more directional than statistically significant.
Yeah, so to actually, we've again tried to restrict all our analysis to a point where we do either a state-wise view or we do a region-wise view, and we've not done, again, the most we have done is state to region. So we've not done further than that, because the data set, actually they've collected a lot of information. But still, that level of depth, if you go, then the data might not be sufficient.
No, I mean, I think it's great that you did this, and it's great visualization. I mean, and you're not making decisions of it.
No.
So I'm happy with it. I'm just saying in terms of other things, like if people are making a national policy or making decisions, then I would start questioning the sample size for other part.
Yeah, there's a move in that direction in terms of trying to see how this can be extended to a larger group and then use analytics and visualization for the larger board and for decision making. So that's probably the long-term goal.
Actually, one of the biggest things that people survey a lesser population is because they don't have tools and techniques right now that can visualize it and process it too at one. So maybe once the techniques are up and up, you can have a larger sample size which is more representative.
Also, to add a comment to this previous discussion, the NSSO data is structured such that they take 3 district clusters in every state. So it's meant to be representative of a particular state and not at a more disaggregated level. So plus I think to answer your question, if you take the previous NSSO data sets and make a comparison with those, you'll probably come up with better insights. So which was one of the questions I had, whether they've actually done that.
We did not have access to the data set, so this is actually given to us by a professor in economics, and he didn't have the 1990s data set. So that's probably we collected and put it together.
One more question is whether the data actually captures people migrating multiple times. So somebody's migrated from one place to another and then migrated again.
I don't think so. So
What they do is any migration from the last usual place of residence. So that part in terms of multiple migration across states is not captured, at least not in this survey. Thank you.
thank you.